And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Hour podcast. We're back from Seattle, and a good friend of mine is here, Nathan Rose. How are you doing, my friend?
Kia ora, Haldane. So good to see you, man. It was an
So good to see
epic week in
you.
MVP Summit together, and yeah, crazy that we're now linked up virtually. So
Absolutely. And we
yeah,
spoke about this. We won't dwell on it, but it's crazy how it's like Monday evening for me, Tuesday
yep,
morning for you. So
yep,
completely different mindsets right now. I'm about
yep,
to clock off. Nathan's literally about to lock in. It's going to be
yep.
a good podcast, man. We've got some good questions prepped. But
Let's do it.
yeah, I mean, Nathan, I think what interests me most about your journey, and we spoke a little bit about this in the summit, but it's
Yep,
the amount of roles you had before
yep,
transitioning finally into the Power Platform.
yep,
I think a lot of people I've spoken to struggle with that transition because, as you know,
mhm,
the barrier to entry isn't so high as compared to traditional
yep.
software development. So it attracts a lot of people coming in. So what are some things you could tell someone who's trying to make that transition but isn't quite there yet? What
Yep.
would you tell them to lock in that transition and be able to
Yeah,
find their first role within the Power Platform?
yeah. I would say just do it. Just get started. Just try something. If it's something you want to do, just go for it. It's never too late. I mean, I'm kind of the old man of the Power Platform crowd now. I mean, I'm going to be 46 in a couple of months, and I mean,
Oh
I
wow,
wear it
you don't
well.
look it, man. You don't
Thanks,
look
mom
it
and
at
dad,
all.
good genes. But yeah, but just go out there. The best career advice I ever got was from an early mentor of mine, named Jonathan Brickman, and he told me just go out and get your nose bloodied. And I would say if you're looking to get into Power Platform, just go out and get your nose bloodied. Just try it. Just get hands on, do stuff, try stuff. If you screw up, if you fail, it's okay. You just pick yourself up, carry on, try again. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be my advice to anybody looking to get into it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I 100% attain to that. There is no time like time spent in the trenches. So I 100% agree. I always push people to set their own developer environment up, whatever that may be, in their own tenant, make your own email, start building, start experimenting.
Yeah.
What do people build? Because I remember being in that position and being like, every minute I'm doing this is a waste of time because
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not going to be able to present these. I'm not going to be able to apply these. Everything I'm doing is hypothetical.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people? I mean, like, is there anything specific they could be building? Like, if you could look back in the
Yeah.
past, would you say, oh, I wish I did this sooner? Do they focus on Copilot Studio? Like, we just came
Yep.
from the MVP Summit, as I'm sure
Yeah.
people know.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of that. So, what specifically, practically can they be building, Nathan?
Yeah. Great question, Haldang. So firstly, yes, Copilot, get on that. That train is leaving the station rapidly. Just as an aside, back in December, the Microsoft AI tour was here in Auckland,
Yeah.
and there was someone from one of the large banks here in New Zealand who was presenting about their journey with Copilot Studio within the bank. And she said something that just blew my mind. She said, when we needed to find people who could do this, they didn't exist. So we had to train ourselves and we had to become the experts. And so for me, it was like one of those theory of everything moments where it was like, wow, this is one of the biggest opportunities in history. If you want to take your career to the next level, if you want to be in the center of where it's all going, get hands on with Copilot Studio. It doesn't really matter what you build, just do it. But I guess in terms of if we kind of pull back to broader Power Platform, I would look at whatever your work situation is today. What's really interesting about Power Platform land is that we all come from different backgrounds. When I used to interview for roles and whatnot, I used to say, oh, I have a non-traditional background because I worked in corporate sales for a decade before moving into what I do today. But the reality is in Power Platform land, we all come from varied backgrounds. Very few of us come from a traditional software development technology background. And so that gives us a huge advantage because you've seen the real world. You've seen issues that need to be solved, business challenges, business processes, and I would say just start there. So when I first got into this was so I worked with Dynamics 365 and whatnot for a number of years, and then I first started coming up against Power Platform in 2019 when what today is Copilot Studio, what then was Power Virtual Agent was in private preview, and I learned how to use Power Automate and started hooking it up to Dataverse and doing all kinds of cool stuff with it. But then I had a process in my role then that took about 3 days a week of my time. So we had a warranty returns process in Dynamics Service that had a design flaw in it. And basically, whenever we needed to charge somebody's credit card, it was never going to work because cases were closed. And so we would get these huge spreadsheets from finance every few weeks saying, here's thousands of people we've shipped product to that we have not collected any money from. And it was my job to go in and activate cases and charge credit cards. And it took 3 days a week of my time. And it started as it was an iterative process. I started with, hey, maybe I could use Power Automate to just manually do some of this process for me. And it built over time. By the time I was done, um, Power Automate was reading my emails, taking out the case number, and doing all this for me. The only time I knew something was wrong was when I saw an unread message in the folder that I had set up for these. Um, and so I would say just take processes like that and start really simply. Don't try to boil the ocean. If I had tried to completely automate this process end to end, I probably would have thrown my hands up and quit. But you start with, hey, what if I could do this little bit of it? And you get that to work. And then you say, hey, what if I could automate another bit and another bit and another bit? And so,
Mm.
yeah, it's just an example of how I would take just real life scenarios from your job today and whether or not you actually build these in production. I built it in production. Um, so it's probably a cautionary tale stuff Chris Huntingford would talk about in his sessions about having governance in the Power Platform and not letting citizen devs go crazy. Side note: when I left the role about a month later, I got a panicked call from my boss saying everything's broken. Yeah, because it was built with my user. So we know that now. Yeah, but just start really simply and ideally do it in a personal dev environment. It's super easy to set one up nowadays. Microsoft make it really easy, either with your work creds or there's other ways to set up a dev environment and just start playing with this stuff and trying it out.
Yeah, 100%. Nathan, we had a few conversations around because your thing is PowerFX, and I love
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
think it's awesome that you made that your thing. PowerFX is a declarative programming language, and there are many different programming languages that aren't so declarative. What, from your experiences, because you've had plenty of experiences within big consultancies,
Yep.
and even smaller ones, have you ever needed to rely on pro code, and should people
Yep.
start hashing up on their pro code skills, or is it
Yep.
something you can get away without knowing?
Yeah. Great question. So I don't code myself.
Mm.
And probably part of my just insistence on low code and my love of it comes from um, massive trust issues. I've had situations where I've worked with developers who have been extremely difficult, uncommunicative, not, you know, they wouldn't really explain what was going on, and you needed them to do the thing, but it was very hard to work with them. And so, yeah, so I probably should talk to somebody about that, but let's just call it passion. Um, so, um, but I would say it never. The more you know, it never hurts, right? If you can learn pro code, it's definitely going to help you. Um, I it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where we go with low code in a world where natural language is starting to take over. So where we can go from a sentence like you and I would have learned to write in primary school to pro code. That's a really interesting world. Now, we're seeing the start of that today with GitHub Copilot, where even myself can go in and I can create functions in C sharp and JavaScript. I don't really understand them, but I can do it. And so yeah, so that's going to be kind of the interesting part of the code world as we move forward. But I really do love PowerFX because it lets people like myself who are not traditional devs go in and build stuff and do stuff and create. I've always said I'm probably a closet developer. I never learned to code, but I really do love to build things, and PowerFX empowers me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really stuck with me at the summit when we had a conversation and you told me it's going to be incredible seeing the way that these evolve because
Yep.
as we move closer to these, GitHub Copilots and
Yep.
ChatGPTs and generative AIs becoming more and more powerful, you know, who's not to say the best coding language is just going to be natural speech, right? We think something, we put it into text, and then we put it out there. Man, it's an
Yeah.
interesting world to be a part of. I mean, what's your take on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one because I guess without getting super geeky here, although we're in a safe space, we can. When you think about it, low code is an abstraction layer, right? We have, we when you write code, at the end of the day, you compile to binary, ones and zeros, because that's what the machine can read. And so low code is an abstraction layer. But what's actually happening when you write pro code is that's an abstraction layer as well, because that pro code has to be compiled. Whenever you write JavaScript, C sharp, what have you, that's got to be compiled into ones and zeros. And so um, low code is just the next iteration of that abstraction layer. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about is if we can go from natural language to code, then do we need the abstraction layers as we've traditionally known them, right? If I can just write a sentence and have that be code, well, why can't that just go direct to binary? Why do I need it to be C sharp
Mm,
or JavaScript? Now, that's the one side of it, but the other side of it is we're still going to need something that is human readable because we're going to need to be able to debug, and the LLM doesn't always get it absolutely correct. I'll give you an example. So last year, when I first played around with GitHub Copilot, I was using it to write a regex in C sharp. And the idea was, hey, let's format phone numbers into an ISO format, which is a common problem pretty much in any model driven app, any Dataverse scenario. We get phone numbers in all kinds of different formats. And when we need to use an auto dialer or anything like that, just wreaks havoc. And so I got my regex in C sharp. I told GitHub what I wanted. It created it. And what I did was I gave it my mobile number as the example and said, use this as the template. Now, somewhere along the line, the code interprets it as hard code this number every time the code runs. So every time my expression runs, it will take whatever number I've put into that column in Dataverse and changes it to my phone number. I can't for the life of me figure out why. I've had pro coders look at it; they can't figure it out either. And so that's just an example that we're going to need something so that someone who is semi-technical can go in and say, okay, what is this code actually doing, and let's make some tweaks to it. Now,
mm.
exactly what that is remains to be seen. I don't think it necessarily needs to be coding languages as we've known them. I think PowerFX could definitely make an interesting option there for people to be able to go in and work with it. But yeah, it kind of remains to be seen where this is all going.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's a point really worth talking about. And I think it expands on another point of just we're in a really weird transitionary period where
Yeah.
we don't know what's going on. We work with Microsoft products. They don't know what's going on. They're
Yeah.
getting from the top down that they need to focus on AI, but they don't even know the direction they're going on.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think it's super interesting how Microsoft have traditionally been second place with things. If you think about cloud technology, Salesforce did it first, etc., etc. The list goes on. But in
Yeah.
this case, I feel like Microsoft were first to the race with the big investment within Open
Yeah.
AI, and now obviously all the work they're doing integrating Copilot into all of their products.
Yeah.
People use Microsoft products everywhere. I think as Microsoft enthusiasts, if you will, we're very interested in kind of the moves they're making. But I think the issue with being in the lead is you don't have anyone to follow, and I feel like it's a big problem. Um, I wouldn't say a problem. It's a lot of excitement. It's a lot of innovation that can happen in that point. But I'd say, with people who are very hands-on with the products and services, it can be confusing.
Yeah.
Copilot Studio is absolutely everywhere. Nathan, have you picked it up? Have you given it a go?
I have. So I was fortunate to have been involved with it from the very early days when it was Power Virtual Agent in private preview, and then
Oh,
I kind of left it for a while. Power Virtual Agent was an interesting one. I was always quite passionate about it because it was where I started my journey, but it was one of those things where there wasn't a lot of use case for it, mainly because you were so limited by you had to detail out these conversations with the agent.
yeah.
And any of us who have ever used classic chatbots, you kind of go, oh, this is a frustrating experience to both build it and to use it because you ask it something that it's not prepared for. Um, and so when generative AI hit the scene, it really changed the game because all you had to do was put in a website and suddenly you could have these intelligent, helpful conversations with the bot. And it's getting really, really useful. Where I'm really excited about it is the autonomous agents. That is an exciting world because we can start to automate things in new ways and do things that we couldn't do before. So I've started getting very hands-on with it, getting my head around it. It does take a mindset shift. It is very different from automation as we've known it. So those of us who are used to classic automation, it's deterministic, right? We know exactly what we're going to get when this thing is done before we even start building it because we've decided that we're going to create a cloud flow. When it's triggered, it's going to take some numbers, it's going to do the thing, and it's going to give us another number, something like that. Whereas with an agent, all we know is we're giving it a job description like a set of like a human would. You've got these broad instructions, you've got knowledge, and you can kind of figure out what it is you're supposed to do. And that is for someone used to traditional automation, it's going to freak you out a bit because you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. So, but it is really exciting. It is they are incredibly powerful, and I've not even done half the stuff they're capable of. I've just used them for some advanced filtering. Say someone responds by SMS, what do we do with that? And even that alone is incredibly powerful. The thing I'm excited to get my head around next is agent flows, which just hit the scene in the last few days. And of course, we got a sneak preview of it the week before last at MVP Summit. And that's exciting because Microsoft, you can see their thinking starting to come together around how this works. Because before Christmas, Satya was interviewed on that podcast where he said that SaaS is dead and everything was going to be an agent. And I don't know about you, but for me, that sat a little uncomfortably with me because I wasn't quite sure what to do with it because I'm not sure I want an autonomous agent running payroll. Um, I kind of want boring traditional automation where it knows that Nathan gets paid this amount every period, regardless to run and do that. I don't want an LLM, getting creative or hallucinating with my pay. I mean, unless it wants to give me $1 million, but
Right.
otherwise, um, but um, with agent flows, you can see that Microsoft is starting to say, okay, agents are really good when we need to figure out what we need to do. So an email comes in, a text comes in, someone asks a question. We need to figure out what needs to happen. Once we've determined what needs to happen, we can now segue and hand off to more traditional automation as we've known it, right? So once the person sends the text in and they want information or they want to book something, well, now, we can hand them off to the booking process or something like that. And so that's what we're seeing with agent flows. I'm hoping to get hands on with it sometime in the next few days and get some demos built to get it out there, because this is to me, this is a huge step forward, because I think it starts to make it clear to people what's an agent, what's an automation, and how these work together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I think everything you said is spot on. I mean, yeah, with me, I really struggled with the virtual agents like you did. I
Yep.
think they were very rigid in the way you code them because,
Yep.
as you mentioned, you'd have to like literally map out you'd have to predict what someone's gonna say. Like I
Yep.
might say people, you might say guys, and we'd
Yep.
have to literally put that on.
Yep.
Yeah, these autonomous cloud flows, obviously with Gen AI included, are I think they're going to change the Power Platform game in some ways.
Definitely.
Nathan, I think we're in a weird space where I feel like a lot of people are talking about the Power Platform, but then again, if we look outside, no one really knows what the Power Platform is in some respects. So, like, if you go to pretty much anyone in the world who has some understanding of tech, they'll know what Microsoft is. They'll
Mhm.
know they'll know what Azure is. They'll know what JavaScript is. But you say Power Platform to some of them, and they kind of just jump out at you. Is that like you've been in the scene for a while? Would you say that's something normal, or do you think it's definitely gaining prominence as it kind of goes on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I Yeah, I generally don't have these conversations with people outside of our bubble. So,
Mm,
because yeah, people just it's not their jam, they're not interested in it. It was kind of funny. I was talking with my parents the other day and they were asking, "Oh, how was MVP Summit?" And I was like, "It was amazing. It was so cool to be in a conference in a room with thousands of people who are all passionate about the same things that I am. Like, your friends, your family, they love you, but it's like, stop talking about power apps. I don't want to hear it. And so I think kind of outside of tech circles, probably not so much. Although you do have it pop up in interesting areas. One of my friend's wives, when she found out what I did, she was like, "Oh, power apps. Yeah, we use that at work." And
mm.
then it was like, wind Nathan up and watch him go. And all right, Nathan, we're done talking about power apps. So, yeah. So I think it's still somewhat niche. But yeah, it is growing, and you're finding it in more and more places.
Yeah, absolutely. I ask because it always kind of surprises me how niche it is, even though it
Yep.
is gaining prominence, and my LinkedIn is obviously full of it because of the people I follow. But
Yep.
I feel like outside of that space, it's not something that is necessarily like talked about
Yep.
as much as some other things. I mean, yeah, I think it's just super interesting the direction that everything's moving in within the space. I only
Yeah.
ask this as well because it branches off another question I had, which is around generative AI in your day to day. So,
Hmm.
ChatGPT, um, Claude, etc. How do
Yep.
you use Gen AI in your day to day? Because I find
Yep.
myself picking up my phone and going to ChatGPT sometimes before I'm even going to Google. So, like,
100%.
I guess I want to understand how you use it professionally, if at all,
Yep.
and then how
Yep.
you use it in your day to day life.
Yeah, so I find myself using it extensively.
Mm,
So um, in fact, the question. So I saw this, I think, on LinkedIn the other day, and the question that I'm starting to ask myself that really terrifies me, because I don't have a good answer today, is what is it that I do that Gen AI doesn't or can't?
mm,
And I am pushing myself to have a good answer to that question, because if I can't answer it, then I'm going to be gone in 5 years. And I would say all of us need to be pushing ourselves to say, what is it that you and I can do that Gen AI doesn't or can't? Because a lot of tasks that used to take me hours, summarize things, analyze things, I get Gen AI to do it for me, and it makes me massively more productive. Um, but the question is, all right, well, where do I fit in? Right now, I'm still needed to interface with the client. I'm still needed to understand the bigger picture and explain things. Um, but if all I'm doing is putting stuff into an LLM, well, at some point, um, there's an expiration date for somebody who just does that. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of the long way of saying I do use it extensively. And yeah, I mean, anytime I need to, yeah, if I need to explain a concept to a client, I'll get ChatGPT to give me a summary. I won't necessarily just copy paste it and send it directly on, but just to help me organize my thoughts around um, whatever concept I need to present. Or if I am putting together a proposal or something like that, I will ask it to help me poke holes in what have I missed? What should I be including? What should I be asking? That type of thing. So it's massively helpful in those ways. And a lot of it is learning to just get hands-on with it. You don't use it the way you use Google. So for example, if let's say we're putting something together for a client on let's pick Parvez's favorite topic of ALM and CI/CD, something I know very little about, which means I would be going directly to the LLM to get that. If in the old days of searching Google, right, you just put in ALM CI/CD, you might say ALM CI/CD Power Platform, and then you'd start collating through all the information and putting it together. If you do that in a large language model, you'll get something, but that's where you start to say, oh, it's hallucinating. Oh, it's not giving me very helpful things. And so you have to, it's a mindset shift. It's a longer process up front because you're going to have to tell it who it is. You are a Power Platform solution architect. You need to design an ALM strategy for a client. Let's say it's a government client and they're located in New Zealand and they have these different parts of the Power Platform. So it's going to be a bigger prompt, but you're going to get more complete information on the flip side once it runs. And so those
Hmm.
are the kinds of things that I'm using it for. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have the exact same experience. Like, I've realized if I just type in, like, give me content ideas, it will give me a load of crap. Like, it will tell
yep,
me it will just say some random stuff. But if I
yep,
give it everything, I am a Power Platform content creator. This is some of the posts that have worked before. These are my
yep,
goals, etc., etc. The more data you can fuel it with, the better it
yep.
gives your answers. And some of those advanced reasoning models are absolutely incredible. Like, I
They're
love them.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. One of the ways that I use it in kind of my less professional life. So when I need to speak at sessions and whatnot, I love to give people analogies and I think it's really important, particularly in our world of high tech, where this stuff can
Mm,
be really hard to get your head around, is to say it's like.
yep.
And so I find that it's super helpful for that. And it comes up with stuff that you would never think of that just would have taken you hours to come up with and lets you give some really interesting talks. So back in January, when I was back in the States visiting my family, I was able to go talk at the Washington D.C. Power Platform user group, which was really cool. It was kind of cool to get to present to my hometown crowd, and I was talking about PowerFX, and I needed something new to talk about because I had done several sessions on it, and I wanted to just mix it up and do something new. And using ChatGPT, I was able to work out that hip hop and disco were invented at the same time. And I was able to kind of go with that analogy. And it was first, it was just really interesting. Like, wow, who would have ever guessed that these two things
Yeah.
were invented at the same time? Um, and yeah, and ultimately, present something that people found really, really useful and interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it is awesome with that, and I agree with you. I think I don't know where I heard this statistic, but if you look at the presidential winnings in America, I think the statistic was the people who used language in the lower grades, so like in the third or fourth grade, tended to
Hmm.
win more than the people who would use the complex words and the complex
Yep.
language. So I think
Yep.
not dumbing things down, because I think it's taking a lot away from how difficult it can be to take tech concepts and turn them into analogies, but making things simple, and really thinking it through. I think ChatGPT can help you with that, and 100%
100%.
it's helped me with some of the courses I built.
Yep.
Definitely. Oh
Yep.
gosh, man, there's so much going on, isn't there, Nathan? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even know. I don't even know what else to ask you. Like, should we just retire? Like at this point, like should we just not do anything anymore? Like, I
Ever.
genuinely can. I I do a lot of techie stuff, and as do you. And I sit in front of my screen, and sometimes I'm like, I really don't know how to do this. I won't check Google, man. I'll go into
Yeah.
ChatGPT. I'll
Oh
see
yeah.
what it gives me, just because I can give it everything specific, and then I'll go to
Mhm.
Google if it gives me a bunch of fluff. But it will
Yep.
give me step by step what I need it to do, and if it doesn't, I can refine it so it can.
Yep.
And it is special, man. It is truly special.
It is very,
Oh
very
gosh.
cool. Yeah, I was just the other night I was out taking a walk with one of my neighbors and he was telling me that his employer wanted someone with a degree in data science and I was like, "Why? You have an LLM. Like, you don't need that anymore." So, and yeah, I think it is giving us agency on a massive scale.
Yeah.
There will be drawbacks. So it's like anything, right? I mean, it's like the internet. There's dark sides of the internet that we don't like.
Mm.
But I don't think any of us would trade this experience and say, well, the bad stuff makes this not worth it. And I believe that AI is going on a similar trajectory. There's going to be stuff that, is not so great. But I think it is giving us agency on a massive scale. And so
Yeah.
the advantages to those that get hands-on with it, get their head around it, um, those are the people who are going to do really well in this new world. If you stick your head in the sand, um, and it's easy to do, right? It's really easy to say, hey, we've got so much Power Apps work right now. I can't be bothered with this. Um, but my fear is that if you do that, you're going to wake up in 3, 4, 5 years and suddenly find the market's moved on without you.
Yeah, agreed. I would love to get into more of your personal life and your career, but before
Sure.
I do that, I have one question. And because I feel like we can speak a lot about go learn Copilot,
Yep.
everyone's saying it, go learn Copilot or you're going to get left behind.
Yep.
How do you learn Copilot? Like, where do people start?
Yep. Yeah. Again, just do it. The
Mm,
easiest thing you can do is just get started prompting it. Asking it questions, learning how to interact with it, because that's going to be most of the roles in the future is knowing how to work with AI to make you more productive at whatever it
mm,
is you need to do. And again, if AI is doing the summary and the analysis, that frees you up to be more of the human in the process and empathizing and understanding with another human. That's going to be an absolutely critical job skill. Or thinking critically about what's coming back and saying, is this accurate? Does this make sense? So those are going to be the critical skills, being able to interact with it. If you want to be more hands-on and technical with it, then again, get a Power Platform trial set up and just start playing with it. There's some great tutorials on YouTube. Lisa Crosby's is my go-to if you want to build an autonomous agent. She will take you step by step through how to do it. And I don't know about you, Haudang, but for me, I have to do a hello world with anything. I have to build something
mm.
very silly and stupid to go, okay, it's really simple, something we would never do in the real world, but it works, and now I understand what it's doing, and I can then start moving to more advanced scenarios.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
yeah, that's what I would do to start. I would say just start,
Yeah,
because the train is rapidly leaving the station.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. No, 100% agreed. And I would also add to that to say, I think people, including myself, I'm like, I don't avoid this, but I think we grievously underestimate how long it takes to get good at something.
Hmm.
And I think if we just sat down and sucked for a while
Yep.
at something, I think we would be all the better for it. Like I remember starting off with Kingsway Soft. I'm not sure if you've heard
Hmm.
of the data
Oh yeah.
migration software,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
amazing for Dataverse and Power Platform. I love using it, but I
Yep.
started off using it and I was like, I don't even know where to look. Like I was so
Yep.
stuck. I was reading documents, they weren't making sense to me. But today, after like a few, I'd say probably about a year of experience with it, like completely on and off, by the way, not even consistent, like a year of experience completely on
Yep.
and off. Um, I feel very prominent in it. I feel
Yep.
comfortable. I feel like
Yep.
I know my way around. And I think that's a special feeling. And I feel like it's one that we need to get used to having the other feeling, which is being uncomfortable with something and not
Definitely.
knowing something,
Yep.
and stepping out of that comfort zone, which I think it was a lot to what you were alluding to.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Um, Nathan, I love speaking about the world and I love speaking
Yep.
about how accessible everyone and everything is nowadays.
Yep.
How are you finding it? How are you making use of it? Like the remote working, the fact that we're connected, the fact that we're
Yep.
doing this, like how are you feeling about everything? Because I feel like after COVID and my God, what was that? 5 years ago now, maybe
Yep.
six,
Yep.
going into six. Yeah, long
Yeah.
time ago. I feel like the world changed and shifted, and I love to take a pause and just say, like, how have you adapted to it, if at all?
Yep.
Like, have you gone to more of a traditional setting? Are you going into the office, or have you completely
Yep.
adopted remote working? And how's that been for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean we're really fortunate to have roles that we can do anywhere in the world, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Hmm.
The I guess the downside of this, I don't know if you know who Scott Galloway is. He writes a blog called No Mercy, No Malice. It's amazing. Highly recommend you read it. He's a professor at NYU, but he has said of remote work that if your job can be done in Bangor, that's a small city in Maine, it can be done from Bangalore. So, if your job can be done from Auckland, it can be done from Abu Dhabi. And so that's kind of the flip side. And so I think the challenge for us as workers is to make sure that we are constantly pushing innovation, that we're at the forefront, that we're justifying the fact that only I can do what I do. Because otherwise, again, in a world where it's remote, um, well, I don't necessarily need to pay you on the salary that you would get in a developed nation because I can go to a lesser developed nation and I can get 20 Nathans for the cost of one Nathan.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, so I think the challenge on us is to keep pushing the forefront. Um, I I took advantage of that during COVID. So it was a challenging time. It was yeah, I mean for all of us. For me personally, I live on my own. I'm massively extroverted, but doing lockdowns on your own was not the easiest, but for me I realized, hey, this is a huge gift. We're being given the gift of time. And so I started investing in myself, investing in getting certified in Dynamics because I wanted to make the jump from the client side into consulting. And so I was able to do that. And few years later, here we are. I've seen kind of massive growth in my career trajectory, and I think a lot of it is just due to the investment that I made during COVID.
Yeah.
I do try to get into the office a few days a week. My employer uses serviced offices across the world just because we've got hybrid teams all over the place, and so it doesn't really make sense to maintain big permanent office spaces, but we do have these co-working spaces that we can pop into. And it's great because, for example, last week my boss and I were in Australia, and there was a place we could go, and we weren't just confined to the hotel to have meetings and get work done. And
Hmm.
same here in Auckland, I'm able to pop in a few days a week and catch up with colleagues and just have a change of scenery, which is nice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you do find that you're stuck in the house a bit, and there are times where you're like, it's Thursday and I haven't left the house since Sunday, and when I say that out loud,
Yeah,
it doesn't feel very healthy.
it doesn't.
So yeah, so I like the mix. I
Yeah.
really, yeah,
No, 100%. It's so weird. I thought it was only me, man. Like 2 days will go by, and I'll be like to my girlfriend. I'll be like, I haven't left the house.
yeah,
Like
I haven't needed
if
to.
I'm not going
Yeah,
to, yeah, if I'm not going to the gym, and she
yeah,
told me this morning, shoot, because I was like, I literally can't get out of bed for the life of me. She was like, if you don't go to the gym, you don't get up. Like you don't
yeah,
need to. You get up at 8:30. You can start work at 9. That's
yeah,
simple. But like, I feel like we need to be more disciplined when we're working from home. So that's really important.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, I always like to ask that question because I feel like as tech professionals, we can not take that for granted, but yeah, sometimes take it for granted, I'd say.
Yeah,
Um, but I do agree with what you said in the sense of it can get a little bit isolated alone.
yep, yep,
Um, and it's good to go and see people and actually speak to people.
definitely.
Like the MVP Summit was great for that, so I really enjoyed it.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And just find your community,
Mm.
in or outside of work, whatever that is. Find a group of people that you love, that, that gets you, you get them, and that you can interact with, whether that's online, ideally in person, but if that's not possible, just find a community because you'll just feel so much more plugged in and grounded and yeah, because again, we spend a lot of time at work, but work is not all there is, and so having that wider community that you're part of, it will just do massive wonders for just your health and happiness.
Absolutely. And let's talk about community, Nathan, because when in
Yep.
some of our personal conversations, you told me how the community shaped your career and helped you in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. Like, let's say someone's very introverted, and as tech
Hmm.
professionals, let's admit we very much can be. I can say for
Yep.
myself, I feel like I'm a big introvert, but how does someone get started with community? Like
Yep.
the worst thing for me imaginable is trying to break into other people's circles, and I hate
Yep.
that idea and I hate the feeling and I don't do it. So how do people break into the community?
Yeah. The community is one of the most welcoming spaces I have ever been. It is an amazing, amazing global community. I mean, I think we all saw this at Canadian Summit, at MVP Summit. Some of the biggest names in Power Platform land are some of the most accessible people you'll ever meet. They're incredibly generous, incredibly kind. And so I would say getting involved with the community is going to benefit you immensely, and it's a very welcoming space. It's a safe space. um, there are no dumb questions. Just get started interacting with people, and whatever that looks like for you. So for some people, that's engaging on the forums and just answering questions. That doesn't really work for me. That's not really my style. But if you're more introverted and that's what you like to do, that might work for you. Or attending the local user group, commenting on people's posts, generating your own content. I would say that it's only going to benefit you if you do it. You're going to learn, you're going to grow, and you're going to meet all kinds of incredible people who are going to give you amazing ideas, and you'll find your world gets so much bigger. So I would say just get started and do it. And I wouldn't worry about, um are people going to like me? Are they going to, are they going to think this is good or not? What you'll notice is that whenever somebody kind of starts their journey and starts posting content, they have a lot of support. A lot of people are rooting for them and cheering for them because we need more people. We love to see more people come into the community and do what we do. And so jump in, the water's warm. I can't think of a single negative comment or trolling that's ever happened to me. Maybe it has. I don't think it has. I mean, I'd like to get like good enough that people feel like they can control me. Like that's then like okay, I've made it. But yeah, it's a very welcoming and accepting place, and so
Yeah.
I would say just get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've made it, man. Like I love your content. I
Oh,
love
thank
having
you.
you on. I always love our conversations. Like
Oh,
this is
likewise,
awesome. And honestly, right now there is no place I'd rather be. So I appreciate you doing
likewise.
this.
Ah, pleasure.
Um, wow, we covered a lot there. Nathan, I always like, you've probably seen some of these episodes, but I always like to get personal with the
Okay.
guest and
Yep.
understand their ways of thinking and
Yep.
understand how they became the person they are today. You're super friendly, super approachable. You're amazing at getting people to speak to each other, which I love because I'm the complete opposite of that. Like I run in the other
Yep.
direction. I sit
Yep.
in the corner alone. I don't like to engage. I'm very bad at it, but once someone engages with me, I feel like I'm
Yep.
quite outgoing. How have you? Where did that come from? I guess I
Yeah.
want to start with that question because that is one of your traits that stuck out to me the most. And how can people learn to to approach people and not be
Yeah.
afraid? I guess is the question.
Yeah. So believe it or not, I was an extremely shy child. I was very, very shy. I was not popular. I did not have a lot of friends. And it all kind of started changing for me the latter part of high school and into university. And I started to come out of my shell. I'm not exactly sure how or why. It just kind of started to happen for me. And I love people and I really love connecting people. And I don't know what it is, but I'll be talking to people and something goes off in my brain and I'm like, you need to talk to this person. And I love kind of, just bringing people together and facilitating those conversations. And so it's I'm not sure how I learned to do it. I don't, I don't believe that everything is just 100% natural talent. I believe most things we might have an inclination towards something, but we learn to do it. Um, so I'm not exactly sure how I learned to do it, but that's just kind of how I operate. Is I just I'm interested in people. I love learning about them, and then I see people who should be talking together and I just like to put them together. So, and I just do it. And so if it's something that you struggle with, I'd say um I mean, I guess first and foremost, not everybody has to be super outgoing or extroverted. I think there's kind of a myth in our society that I mean, extroverts rule the world. They just do because, introverts are, busy hanging out at home and um, you know, doing introvert things, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And extroverts are like, let's just get everybody in a big room and it's going to be awesome. The introverts are like, yeah, no. Um, and I think we need to just say that, extroverts don't have it all right. And so yeah, I would say if you're an introvert, like that's okay. Just own that, embrace it. That's who you are. And uh, don't feel like you have to be a certain way because you don't. At the same time, I would say, if there's things that you want, then you're going to have to learn to come out of your shell a bit and approach people, and some of it just takes practice. You just over time you get good at you learn to be comfortable with just going up to somebody and talking with them and asking for things. There's some really good YouTube channels on it. Charisma on Command is one of my favorites, and they've
Yeah,
got some really good advice on that. And there's some exercises they'll give you, like just go up and just ask for things. You're buying a coffee at Starbucks, just ask them for a discount, right? All they can do is say no. But you'll
yeah,
start to get comfortable exercising that muscle of doing things that put you a little bit outside of your comfort zone without without you know doing something that would, possibly really, really mess with your head. So, yeah, so
yeah.
that's some stuff that you could do if you wanted to kind of start branching out a little bit more.
100%. I failed that assignment, Nathan. I read a book and it told me to do it. And it was like, do it, just do it. And I promise you'll
Yep.
be better for it. I walked past that Starbucks like
Yep.
20 times before I
Yep.
forgot about it. And I was like, going inside. There were times I went inside and ordered a coffee and didn't ask for the discount and then just
Yep.
left. And I was just like, they're gonna think I'm so stupid. Like they're gonna think like I'm coming into a Starbucks and
Yep.
they're gonna think I'm stupid for asking for a discount. But yeah, honestly, I might do it tomorrow now you've mentioned it
You
because now it's
should,
gonna bother
dude.
me.
It's crazy how what people will give you if you just ask. It's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah,
I
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get things at times. People are like, "How'd you get?" I'm like, "I just asked." You never know. They'll be like, "Okay." I mean, I remember it wasn't long after I moved to New Zealand, and we were buying a filing cabinet for the home office, and it was just the floor model was left, and I was like, "Can we have a discount?" And they were like, "Why?" And I was like, "I don't know. There's some dust on it." And they're like, "Okay."
yeah. Fair enough.
So
Why
yeah,
not?
just ask. I mean, all they can do
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I love it. I love it, Nathan. Okay, we're coming to the last 10 minutes,
yeah,
and I always like to leave time for this question because it's important to me, and hopefully it's important to you and the people listening. Everyone has a different answer, so I'm curious to hear yours, Nathan. But what does happiness mean to you?
yeah. Wow, I've never thought about that before. That's a really good question. I think I think happiness is I think in a lot of ways it's fleeting, right? It's it like our emotions, it comes and goes because you know it there's moments where I feel really happy, moments when I don't. I mean, last night when I was coming home on the train, there was some songs that came up on Spotify's We Think You Might Like, and I was like, oh, I really like this. And I was in a pretty good mood. Um, and but that'll change. There'll be an email from a client today or something, and it'll, put me in a grumpier mood. You never know. I think what we really want to be looking for is joy. It's that more deep rooted, um, because, happiness comes and goes. But it's more of a having a joy in your life with, really loving life, loving what you do, loving the people you're around, learning to be okay irrespective of your circumstances because they're going to change. You're going to go through good times, you're going to go through bad times. You're going to have times where you love your work and the people you work with. You're going to have times where you don't. And I think being grounded in something bigger, having that more deep rooted joy is far more important. And how do you develop that? I think it's there's a number of different ways. I think for me it's being involved in community both personally and professionally, being involved with my faith community, um, really helps me stay grounded and just develop that joy, and doing things you love. And so yeah, that's to me that's kind of how I would answer that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you're not the first person to say, paraphrasing here, but life comes at you in waves and,
Yeah,
you're just riding each wave and sometimes it goes up and sometimes it comes down.
yeah,
Um, it kind of, you don't know what's going to happen, but I think if you're comfortable with yourself, if you believe in yourself, very cringe stuff I'm saying, isn't it today? But I
no, it's
genuinely
not.
believe if you're,
Very
yeah,
true. It is
yeah,
very true.
I think if you're comfortable with yourself and you believe in your ability to recover from anything, you can ride those waves and,
Yeah.
eventually it will cool down and then it will come again. And there's no
Yep.
kind of getting around that. I think I finally found a point where I was content when I realized that even though it's good now, it might not be tomorrow. Right.
Yep.
And, there's true peace in figuring that out. But I love your answer, Nathan. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and in these final 5 minutes, Nathan, I would love to give you the floor, roll out the red carpet, let the people know what you're up to. You've been an amazing guest. And yeah, the floor is all yours.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, gosh, there's a lot of ways I could go with that. Yeah. I am, yeah, continuing on my journey with Copilot Studio and AI, continuing on with my first love of PowerFX and looking for new ways to use it across the Power platform. Um, Always looking for new challenges, new ways to learn and grow and use this amazing low code technology that Microsoft have given us and use it in new ways. And I'm always looking for more people to come along on the journey. So if you're someone who's thinking about a career in tech and Power Platform, if you're someone who is working with it a bit and wants to learn more, I'm always open to conversations. If you're looking to, get started or how do you progress in your career, I love to have those conversations with people. So yeah, reach out. And I've had people invest into me and help me get to where I am today, and I'm always looking to pay it forward. So yeah,
Love that. Love that. Great way to close it, Nathan. Thank you very much for being such an amazing guest. And thank
thank
you at
you.
home for listening to this episode of the Power Hour podcast. You know where you can find us. You just heard where you can find Nathan. And yeah, Nathan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Haldane. Good to see you
Take it
again.
easy. See
Yep.
you. Bye bye.